What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, your premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers. And I am your host, Julie Jester Gayheart. It is a Saturday morning in Charlotte, North Carolina, you guys. It was raining earlier this morning, but now it is bright and sunny, and I am sure it is going to be warm. And welcome everybody back to the show. I know this was kind of a surprise live this morning, but not really surprise. I needed to record episode number 157. So I decided, why not? I am finishing up my second cup of coffee, and I've already got my greens going here this morning. I'm trying to be a little more healthy as we are in the spring now and moving toward summer. And you guys know I've got senioritis. So that is a term that the seniors use when it's about 2 or 3 weeks left of school. And I've got senioritis myself. So you guys, we are going to take a trip up to Connecticut, which is the gateway to the New England states. And we are going to talk about section hiking through Connecticut today. But before we get to that, I just want to say, give a shout out to everybody that is in the chat. So John, good morning. Appreciate you being here. Alpha Gal, good morning. Appreciate you being here. And Alpha Gal, I got a surprise for you this morning. Roger, if I can click my buttons properly here. Roger with Take a Hike Fitness is in here. And for some reason, there we go. Thank you for being here, you guys. I truly appreciate it. And I did not send out anything about this live. So if you are following over on the Julie Gayheart YouTube channel, and you have subscribed and hit the bell notifications, you probably got notified that there was a live this morning. If you are listening to the regularly scheduled audio of this episode, thanks for joining. You guys, I want to go ahead and get started. First thing I want to say is over the last several weeks since I started these particular episodes, we started with episode number 154, where we took a section hike through Georgia, all the logistics on section hiking through Georgia. Then we spent some time in episode number 155, all the particulars of section hiking the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And the last episode in this series, you guys, episode number 156, hiking through the Shenandoahs. You guys loved that episode. I got more feedback on that episode than I think I've ever gotten feedback on any of the episodes. So if you gave me feedback, if you put comments either on Instagram, Facebook, or here on YouTube, I truly appreciate it. And Roger in the chat says, Connecticut, yes, I have been waiting on this episode, planning that section this fall. So Roger, you shall wait no more. You guys know what I'm gonna do. If you are following here on YouTube, I am flipping over to our checklist. And you guys, in the education world, you're supposed to have a lesson plan every day or some type of agenda, something that you're working on for the students. And the saying in the educational world is, if you are not updating your lesson plan daily or actually by the block, because things can change from first block to the last block of the day, you are not doing things right. So those of you, you could have access to the checklist. It is going to be in the description in the YouTube channel, or it will also be in the show notes if you are listening to the audio version. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, you will find a link to the checklist, and you guys will notice at the top of the checklist, I have added our particular partner for these episodes, these specific episodes that I'm doing on this Appalachian Trail section hiker series. And our partner as you guys know, and I have spoke about before, is hiker medals. And I just want to show, since we're talking about the Appalachian Trail, I want to show the Appalachian Trail medal here in the video version of the show that is available now on hikermedals.com. You guys, you don't have to complete the trail to get this medal. Wim over at Hiker Medals has 42 or 45 medals available on that site. You can send them as gifts, presents. You can get one for yourself. And you can get 20% off by using the code Jester in all caps. So all you got to do is go over to hikermedals.com, place an order, use the code Jester in all caps, and you will get 20% off. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to answer some questions that I've gotten recently. And this is where Alpha Gal comes in, if he is still on here. I have gotten some questions via email and over on the DMs in my Instagram about who I follow on YouTube. You guys know 100% we are in the heart of hiker season. And I always follow a couple thru hikers. You know, I try to follow their hike if they are vlogging and putting up daily videos. And you guys, if you have gone over and listened to any of the episodes on the podcast that I do with Austin, it is called the Beyond the Trail podcast. You will know that YouTube is my social media of choice. So I follow several people on social media, but you guys, a couple section hikers that I follow in particular are Alpha Gal. And you guys will see this on the checklist. Alpha Gal is here in the chat, and he is, I want to say, chronically out section hiking the Appalachian Trail. And he is really good about posting his particular section hikes that he goes out on his YouTube channel rather rapidly. So you guys, I'm not going to pull the full channel up, but you can see here, Chris Aconi on YouTube, section hiking. Go follow his channel. Another individual I follow, Chris says, LOL, it's an addiction. So you are a chronic section hiker, Chris, and I love it. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a formal invite since you are on here this morning. I am going to take a break over the summer from the podcast, but when I come back in the fall, I want you to be my first guest. So this is an invitation. Alpha Gal, say yes in the chat. Don't say no if you don't want to come on. I want you to be my first guest back in the fall because I want to talk about your section hiking, what you're up to, what you have going on with your YouTube channel. And shame on me that I have not had you on the show. So please put yes in the chat that you will come on. The second section hiker that I love to follow, you guys, Lucky Dog or Shri, has been on the podcast. He is out right now. I believe he may have finished his current section hike. He was actually going to be hiking into Damascus Trail Days, but I feel like I saw some pictures that he had already made it to Damascus. So you guys, Lucky Dog or Shri, he's got some great stuff out there on YouTube. And as you know, he created the term the Inside Out section hike. So go follow him. And you guys, Chris says, I think he just finished Virginia. So yeah, so he's got some section hikes out there. Some thru hikers that I am following, you guys. Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker, she is posting daily videos and they come out at 7 a.m. in the morning. And that has become my morning ritual when I have a break at work. And I think she's doing a fantastic job in getting those videos out. And you guys, they're anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes long. And she's letting you know what's going on the trail, giving updates. And I did not follow her 2021 thru hike, but I have thoroughly enjoyed following her on a daily basis. And you can find her over at the Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker. And I've pulled up a mini version of her YouTube on the video here. If you guys follow Taylor, put it in the chat. Give me a thumbs up. What I'm hoping for this 2023 thru hiker season. I'm hoping that Taylor will finish. She plans to finish her hike somewhere around July, August. And then I'm hoping, no pressure, Hawk. I believe Hawk is going to go southbound on the AT. And I am sure he's going to do his daily videos. So in a perfect world, I'm hoping Taylor will finish her hike, and then Hawk will start at Katahdin and start heading southbound later this summer. So Taylor will finish, and then I will start picking up with Hawk, which would be a perfect scenario. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Hawk has made no promises, but Hawk has been on the podcast a couple times, you guys, and I really enjoy following his hikes and his videos that he puts out there. And I think if he goes this year, it will be hike number 8 of completing the Appalachian Trail. And my overall go-to, and you guys, I watch and follow a lot of people on YouTube. My go-to channels when I need 100% inspiration is Early Riser and John Z or John Sahorian. And I'm going to talk about Early Riser here for just a second. So Early Riser, he is probably my age, I'm assuming. And he got his trail name Early Riser because, I mean, the dude is up at 3 or 4 in the morning, hikes all day, into bed early, and he has this whole thing about getting up and utilizing the morning hours. And when I need inspiration, I will go over and watch some of his videos. And I've watched his AT thru hike, I believe it was 2015 or 16, a couple times just to get inspiration, because you guys know as section hikers, we are not out on the trail all the time, but I thoroughly enjoy watching those 6 particular channels when they put stuff out there. So go ahead and go over and give all those individuals a follow. I am sure they will thoroughly appreciate it. And it looks like we got some thumbs up in the chat. So I believe others are following those channels as well. And you guys, let's go ahead and get to it. In this particular episode, I'm going to do things a little bit different. So each episode starting from Georgia, going to the Smokies, going to the Shenandoahs, and now we are in Connecticut. I have talked about the AT guide as one of the tools for success. And I've got the printed version here. And when I am at home, the AT guide is my catalyst to planning, logistics, looking up hostels in those in whatever particular area I am searching for a section hike on the Appalachian Trail. So I would say at home, the tool that I utilize the most is the AT guide. And then when I am actually on the trail, the tool that I utilize the most is the Far Out app. And I've actually been learning from Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker, and I can't say that right because I am from the South, so I am never going to say the New Hampshire hiker properly. And on one of her videos the other day, since she is from New Hampshire, she cannot say Appalachian, so there's where we have some differences. I'll take on the Appalachian for her. She has given me information, or I have learned from her channel that there are way more shuttle drivers that are putting their information in Far Out, and she has been utilizing Far Out for shuttles and additional information on hostels and things like that may not necessarily be in the AT guide. And here in the chat, yes, that is another one. I may add that. Chryzacone says White Blaze Pages is another excellent source. Chris, if you don't mind, will you put that link in the chat for the White Blaze Pages? That would be another great resource that we could have in the chat, and I will add it to the checklist. But you guys, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, wait, I did notice Chris put in the chat earlier, I've got a hat on, you guys, It is a Buc-ee's hat. I could do a whole episode on Buc-ee's, and I'll just leave it at that. Buc-ee's is a gas station on steroids. It's like a QT meets a Sheetz meets Disneyland. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, over spring break, I had an experience at Buc-ee's. I mean, I almost had a panic attack when I went in there. It's so many people. They probably have 200 gas pumps. And when you go in, it's like food, clothing, anything you want. It's an experience. I can't even explain it. It's like a Walmart meets a Target meets a gas station. It overwhelmed me, and I was like, I got to get out of here. But yeah, I did get me a Buc-ee's hat. I was looking for a hat to hike with this summer, and I have chosen the Buc-ee's trucker hat. So you guys, Buc-ee's is an experience. But yeah, maybe one day I'll do a whole podcast episode on resupply at Buc-ee's. That would be interesting. But let's get to Connecticut, you guys. Connecticut is known as the gateway to New England. And you guys, when you are section hiking, if you're out on the trail for a long section hike and you start to reach the New England states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, the air starts to smell different. Things start to cool down, but also the terrain starts to change. And you guys will notice that if you go out and take on a week or so, 7 to 10 days to section hike Connecticut. And today, the gateway to New England, you guys, I am going to be referencing the AT guide, pages 161 through 170. And I'm going to pull those up here in just a second so you guys can see that if you are watching the video version. But section hiking Connecticut, I'm excited because I am actually going to go section hike Connecticut again because I feel like I missed some things on my first round. I have not been through Connecticut since 2015, and there's so much to see and do when you are section hiking the 52 miles that are actually in Connecticut. But you guys will see on this checklist that I am recommending, if you want to section hike Connecticut, that you absorb and take advantage of everything that Connecticut has to offer, but you also bookend your trip by starting in New York and actually ending in Massachusetts. And that will give you 68 miles instead of 52 miles. And I want to pull up the AT guide if I can make it work. I think I can make it work on here. And the reason I suggest that you start in New York, you guys, a city that no one talks about rarely that I've heard in New York is Pawling, Pawling. Pawling, New York has all the amenities that you need. You can get started there. You can spend the night there. And you could start, you guys, at the famous, if you guys have watched anybody's YouTube channels, if you've looked at any pictures of New York, most section hikers and thru hikers always take a picture of the AT railroad station where you could take the train into New York City. And everybody's always sitting on the benches there, or the big long bench that they have at the New York Trail station. And I recommend you start your section hike there. You can get to Pawling, New York. You can spend the night there. You can get a shuttle or Uber. You can actually take an Uber from Pawling to the railroad station, parking area, take pictures, have an awesome time. Get boots on the ground in New York, and then start your section hike. And one of the things I wanted to say about section hiking Connecticut, you guys, the next thing on the checklist is, how are you going to start this hike? So if you're going to start, you're going to get to Pawling, New York. You're going to get to the railroad station. You're going to take pictures. You're going to high five or whatever you're going to do. You're going to start. And again, I am considering these episodes that we are hiking north. And you get there, you start at the railroad station, and you guys, I would almost say you don't need, if you're going to backpack the 68 miles, you only need 1 to 2 days of food, depending on how many miles a day that you are going to hike. Because in Connecticut, there are road crossings to towns that you have easy access to. In other words, I'm not sure when I'm going to hike Connecticut again. It might be next summer. I am going to start at the railroad station, and I'm going to have a day or two of food. And you guys, I am going to have fun because there are so many towns, covered bridges, hot dog stands, places to eat. And we're going to hit that here in a second. And Chris brought up a good point. I'm so glad you're on here because you can remind me of these things. Right before the railroad station is the Dover Oak. Now, there are 2 huge oak trees on the Appalachian Trail. The first one that you're going to see is the Kiefer Oak or the Keffer Oak, which is just north of Perrysburg. And most people take pictures there. And I've got one. I wish I would have pulled it up. Everybody wraps their arms around the big oak tree, but there is actually another one. I don't know if I could pull this down. Yes, the Dover Oak, which is, it looks like 2 miles before. Actually, you could get dropped off right at the Dover Oak, it looks like, which is 2 miles prior to the AT Railroad Station. And the AT guide says the Dover Oak, the north side of the road, the largest, this says it's the largest oak tree on the AT. The girth is 20 feet by 4 inches and estimated to be over 300 years old. Do not drive or park on the roots of the oak, as doing so can impact the health of the tree. So, according to the AT guide, it is the largest oak on the Appalachian Trail, but you do have the Kiefer Oak or the Keffer Oak that is back in Virginia. So again, my recommendation, get yourself to Pawling, New York, get yourself a copy of the AT guide and start at the Dover Oak and work your way north. And you guys, the first town you are going to come to, here's one thing I wanted to mention. The reason I wanted to pull the AT guide up is because the railroad station, you can get down to New York City at various places, I guess. But in the AT guide, as I'm showing here in the video version of this episode, there is a telephone number and there is information. And I have heard the train only runs at certain times, but I have seen pictures of people being able to get to New York City, and they're down there with their backpacks on and all that kind of stuff. So that can all be worked out. But here on this same page, I'm going to move this over. What I wanted to talk about next. So you're going to get to the Dover Oak. That's already a highlight. You're going to see the famous railroad station. That is already another highlight. I'm going to go back to the checklist here. My internet must be crazy today. It's not really wanting to pull this checklist up properly, but this is what I am looking for. Okay, so the next, depending on how many miles you're going to hike, so you've got the Dover Oak, you've got the railroad station, you're already having a good time. Your first stop that I recommend that you do and not miss this is Bull's Bridge. So there are several towns and road crossings that you're going to come across. In this first one, you're going to come to a road intersection. I believe it's a gravel road. And Bull's Bridge is your first covered bridge that you're going to have an opportunity hiking on the AT going north to go off the trail. Bull's Bridge is off the trail, but there's a covered bridge. There's a store. It's an awesome place. I think sometimes they have a hot dog stand there depending on the time of year. So you guys, the very first day, you have the opportunity to see the largest oak tree, the famous New York railroad station, Bull's Bridge. and you've already had an opportunity to eat, and you're going to have breakfast before you head out on the trail that first day, so you're not going to have to carry that. If you go down to Bull's Bridge and you go to the country store, you're going to have an opportunity to get a meal there. So right there, the first day, you've eaten breakfast, you're carrying your snacks, and you have an opportunity to go down to the country store, depending on the hours and the time you get there. So that first day, you may not have to carry anything with you but your snacks and dinner that night. And let's go back to the AT guide. So that's your first day, you guys, and it is packed with all kinds of information, all kinds of things you could do, and you have your hiking. So we haven't even talked about the hiking. So you're going to see the Dover Oak. I've got the map pulled up here, which is a pretty good map that gives you an indication of what you're going to do on this first day. You're going to see the Dover Oak. You're going to see the famous railroad station. You're going to continue on, and you're going to cross into Connecticut, and then you get to Bull's Bridge, and it says here that Bull's Bridge is 0.3 miles east off the trail, and you guys, it is 100% worth it, and I totally recommend it. And yeah, that could potentially be your first day in Connecticut. And by the time you do all that, you are totally going to be exhausted. So that first day is already packed, and you are hitting your way into the New England states, where you guys are going to come upon some interesting terrain in that 68-mile section in Connecticut. And what I mean by that is the terrain, once you cross over from New York into Connecticut, you're going to kind of weave back and forth. I'm not sure how many miles, New York, Connecticut, and then finally you're going to enter into Connecticut, and you are going to go along the Housatonic River. And you're going to think like, golly, this is awesome. I'm walking along the river. I'm in Connecticut. The terrain's not too bad. But then as you get into day 2, day 3, day 4, and you'll notice on the checklist, I have some particular highlights, I guess, on here. So the terrain, just like Georgia, I said, Georgia, the terrain is going to trick you. The terrain in Connecticut is going to trick you as well, because you guys, you are entering the New England states, and you are starting to get into the terrain that is going to give you an idea of what you're going to hit in New Hampshire and Maine. And that actually starts with Caleb's Peak. So you're going to hit 3 different areas, probably depending on your mileage and what you're going to be doing, either the second or third day that you are out there. You're going to hit Caleb's Peak, you're going to hit St. John's Ledges, and then you are going to enter Sage's Ravine. So Caleb's Peak is amazing. You do have to work hard to get up there. And once you get up to the peak, you can look out, you can celebrate, and then you're going to come upon St. John's Ledges. And St. John's Ledges is this rock formation that you have to weave in and out of. And you guys, I'm going to tell you a little story about Jester going through St. John's Ledges. So when you get to this rock formation, there are white blazes on the rocks. And there are double blazes that tell you to go one way or the other. And I was totally not paying attention when I started to truly enter this St. John's Ledges area, and totally went the wrong way and was climbing this rock formation. I don't even know where I was going. And I probably went, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 football field lengths and realized that I was not on the AT. So I had to climb my way back down and try to figure out where the white blazes were, and then continue on my way once I found my way. And you guys, these ledges, they're really, really steep rock steps almost that you have to go down. And it's going to give your legs a really good indication of what is ahead. And if you have not been out on the trail, if you are coming from Iowa, Illinois, these flat states, Florida, and you have not conditioned your legs to terrain that is going to take you straight up and take you straight back down and big rock step downs, you are going to be surprised when you get to that area. But Connecticut, you guys, is one of my favorite states because as a section hiker, it gives you a very good taste of all of the AT. You get a taste of the Southern Appalachians. You get a taste of walking flat along the Housatonic River. And then as you are making your way toward the middle of the state and toward Massachusetts, it gives you a kick in the tail of what is to come in New Hampshire and Maine. So once you make your way through St. John's Ledges, the next thing you can look forward to is Sage's Ravine. And you guys, Sage's Ravine, I can't even describe it. It's almost like this mini ravine, and you're walking north, and the ravine for the most part is on your left-hand side. And if you are hiking there, you are doing this section in the summer, you have several opportunities to swim and hang out in the ravine. You guys, I can't even describe it. So it is a couple miles long. It might be more than a couple miles long, and you're walking along this ravine, and there's just swimming holes and rock formations, and it's not easy terrain. It's going to beat your feet up, but you're going to have a great time going through there. And once you get through Sage's Ravine, you will encounter Bear Mountain. And you guys, there is a Bear Mountain in New York, but this Bear Mountain, I got another story for that too. So Bear Mountain in Connecticut, Sage's Ravine kicked my tail, and Bear Mountain kicked my tail. Bear Mountain is not bad hiking north. So you work your way up, and there's this huge rock pile when you get to the top of Bear Mountain in Connecticut. And when you start to go down the back side of Bear Mountain, it is like straight. I mean, it is, I can't even put my hand, the angle that this mountain is. And I had no idea. And I didn't know what to expect or what was coming. And you guys, going down the backside of this mountain, it was like I was holding on for my life, because you kind of feel like you're just going to slide. Like you just, you're in a sled and you're going to slide down this mountain. And it was tough. It was tough. And I almost wish I would have gone south, because I prefer to go up instead of go down, steep terrain. But can't do that all the time, depending on what you have going on with your schedule. So just beware. You don't want your pack to be real heavy when you're going down Bear Mountain. And again, you guys, Connecticut, it's just packed full of amazing things. I mean, I can't even describe what you are going to see as you go through Connecticut. So again, you're going to start, if you do the 68-mile section, you're going to start at the tail end, at the northern end of New York. You're going to have a great few days. Again, I do not recommend carrying more than 1 or 2 days of food, because once you get, hitting these highlights, you've also got several towns that you are going to encounter where it is easy access to get to these towns, whether you're going to use a shuttle driver, whether some of these towns you can use an Uber. And in some of these towns, you may want to utilize the services that they have. You may want to spend the night. You may want to resupply. There's so much in Connecticut. It's almost like you want to take your time and not rush through Connecticut and spend a night in each one of these towns. You could actually day hike Connecticut, no problem. If you want to use shuttle drivers or slack pack Connecticut, not an issue. What I would do is take a look in the Bulls Bridge area or maybe in the Salisbury area and see what hostels are around in those particular towns. And maybe you want to slack pack that whole section because you want to spend the night in towns and things like that. And again, my recommendation is to contact the hostels in the area, contact the shuttle drivers in the area, and go from there. And it's kind of like sky's the limit when it comes to Connecticut. I did have somebody reach out and ask me, would it just be easier to, pack 5, 6, 7 days of food and carry all of their food through Connecticut? I actually think it would be harder. There's no reason to carry all of your food through Connecticut, because if you're like me, you want to see the towns, you want to eat in town, you want to utilize the services, you want to hit the highlights, you want to see the covered bridge in Bulls Bridge, and I just think it's not necessary. It's just not necessary to carry 5, 6, 7 days of food just because you don't want to resupply. Take advantage of not having a heavy pack. So I think I left off on Bear Mountain. And you guys, as you get to the northern part of Connecticut, 2 of my favorite places in Connecticut are Mount Race and the summit of Mount Everett. You guys, the terrain, Mount Race, it starts to get rocky. It starts to get what I call ledgy. You're going to have a lot of rock faces and ledges, but make a note right now. You either want to have lunch. I would say plan your itinerary around having lunch on Mount Race, and then going from Mount Race, you've got a nice little climb. You want to make sure your belly's nice and full. You've got plenty of electrolytes and fuel in your system, because the climb up to Mount Everett will remind you that you have entered the New England states on the Appalachian Trail. But when you get up there, you can celebrate, have an awesome time. And then on the northern end of that, you are going to be getting into Massachusetts. And if you are going to finish this section, you are going to get out somewhere around Jug End Road. And that will give you a good 68 miles of going through Connecticut. Tons of highlights in Connecticut: Dover Oak, Railroad Station, Bulls Bridge, Caleb's Peak, St. John's Ledges, Sage's Ravine, the wonderful Bear Mountain, the climb up, and I'm going to call it the climb down. You've got Mount Race. On the northern end of Connecticut, you've got Mount Everett, which is absolutely amazing. Tough climb. Very, very tough climb, and steep. If you're going north and you're heading down to Jug End Road, if you're going to end your section hike there, it is a steep down, but well worth it. And you guys, just take your time when you go to Connecticut. Utilize the towns. I've got the towns on the checklist: Bulls Bridge, Kent, Cornwall Bridge, Falls Village. One regret I have in walking through or hiking through Connecticut in 2015 is I did not spend more time in Falls Village. There are several places to eat. There are several places to stay, and you can find all of that information in the AT guide. And let's flip back over there real quick, because I do want to flip toward the end here. You guys, I'm just pulling up like there in Cornwall. I'm looking on the AT guide. I mean, there are several places to stay. You've got the Hitching Post Motel. You've got the Cornwall Inn. You've got a package store there. There looks to be the Bearded Woods. I've actually heard quite a bit about this place. They do shuttles. It says they are open May 1st through October the 1st. They do shuttles any distance. They do not take mail drops, but I believe Cornwall Bridge might be in the middle of that section of Connecticut. And let's flip through. I want to get toward the end of our hike here. You guys, Falls Village that I mentioned, I mean, you literally walk through the village. There's pizza places, there's laundry bats, there's the Falls Village Inn and Tavern. I mean, there's just too many to talk about. And like I said, I do regret not spending more time in Falls Village. There is Salisbury, Connecticut on the northern end. I do remember going to Salisbury and getting ice cream. So put that on your list. And this is something else I noticed in Salisbury. They have what they are calling a hiker square. And Chris, I'm not sure if you're still in here, but I have not been to this hiker square. That did not exist in 2015. So I don't have a lot of information about that. But you guys, when I go back through, I'm going to go through and see what that is all about. And as you can see here, I am flipping through these pages, you guys, all the way to Jug End Road, where there are coordinates, which I am sure you can get a shuttle, an Uber, or what have you. And Chris says he has not been there yet, probably in the fall. So Chris, what is your plan? How are you going to hike Connecticut? And I should ask you what you are looking forward to the most. Put that in the chat. Let us know. So you guys, Connecticut, if you're looking on the map, it's 52 miles. And there is some type of Connecticut challenge. You know how they have the 4-state challenge in the southern states? Well, not the southern states. Like I believe the 4-state challenge is Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and something else. I can't remember, but right off the top of my head. But you guys, that is 40. The 4-state challenge is 42 miles. The Connecticut challenge would be 52 miles. And I have heard of some crazy hikers doing that, 52 miles within 24 hours. But if you plan to bookend the trip where you're going to start in New York, that northern end, of New York at the railroad station there, and you're going to go north all the way past Mount Race, all the way past Mount Everett, and end there at Jug End Road. That is going to give you 68 miles. And packed in between there are, I'm going to go back to the checklist here, several towns, several places to resupply. I mean, Connecticut, you guys, I'm pumping myself up. I'm ready to go back through Connecticut myself. Chris says he's did up to Kent so far. You've got 1,471 miles. Or wait a minute. Is 1,471 miles the miles you've completed, Alpha Gal, or where that is at on the AT guide? But yeah. So you guys, Connecticut, you got to be careful. Because Connecticut, remember, it's the gateway to the New England states. And what I mean by that is, depending on what time of year, will depend on what you are carrying in your pack. So I went through Connecticut the end of July, the beginning of August, and it was summer. I didn't have any issues. The one thing I will say, it is cooler at night. You can start to feel that cool air. And Chris says that he is going in the fall. So what he packs will be a little bit different than what somebody would pack in the heart of summer. I have had some questions on what to pack in the New England states. And you guys, I might do a separate episode on that, because as section hikers, we can kind of plan around weather. You can plan not to go to the New England states when you don't want to hike in the snow, when you don't want to hike in the spring, because the spring can get kind of, sketchy when you want to go. And Chris says he's going in the fall. so he could see the fall leaves changing. And I'm telling you right now, I'm excited for you, Chris, because going through I can't imagine going through Sage's Ravine in the fall. What an amazing, awesome trip that would be. So you guys, I want to flip back over here. I don't know how it happens. I am already 47 minutes into the show, and we've packed a lot of information into 52 miles if you're only going to do Connecticut, and then 68 miles if you're going to add on. Hopefully I've talked y'all into going to the Dover Oak. Well, actually, Chris talked us in to going to the Dover Oak and then hitting the railroad station. And then you guys, you're going to hit Bulls Bridge. You're going to hit several towns, Caleb's Peak, St. John's Ledges, Sage's Ravine, Bear Mountain, Mount Race, Mount Everett, and then into Massachusetts. And then you will have completed your hike of Connecticut. And Roger says, let me see what Roger says. Roger says, our family is having a cookout today to get our details wrapped up for our Maryland and West Virginia section next month. We will also start our planning for our Connecticut section this fall. Want to hit the fall foliage. And yes, Roger, 100% on that. Again, I'm jealous that you guys are going to be able to hit that in the fall. I cannot imagine what that's going to look. I'm visualizing Sage's Ravine right now at the top of Bear Mountain in the fall, and that would be absolutely amazing. All right, you guys, I'm going to wrap this up. We do have a couple people in the chat here. I do appreciate you joining on this episode. I do have a special episode coming up this Tuesday evening. I want to make sure I get the date correct. So Tuesday is, let me see here. I don't want to give you guys wrong information here. And I have no idea why my calendar won't pull up here. Okay, so Tuesday is May 16th. So be on the lookout for another notification. We are going to have a special episode. I'm interrupting the Appalachian Trail Section Hiker series so we can have on Chica and Sunsets from Chica and Sunsets Hostel down in Georgia. They are wrapping up their northbound season, and I had reached out to them earlier this year to see if they wanted to come on the show, and we agreed that they would come on as they wrap up the northbound season. So you guys, they will be on Tuesday evening, May 16th. Be on the lookout for that. And not only are they going to be sharing about their hostel and what they've seen this northbound season, what's happening with the hikers out there in the 2023 AT thru hiker section hiker season, they are also going to be talking about their slack pack specials or options that they have at their hostel in the fall, which I think is totally awesome. So I am going to leave it at that. I do not see any more questions in the chat. I do appreciate you guys coming on. I hope that you guys are excited now to hike Connecticut, which is packed full of ledges, climbs, food, resupply, plenty of towns, places to stay, covered bridges. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. And Chris says, well, this is hilarious. Chris says, I'll likely extract off Bear Mountain using the Mount Frizzle Trail to the west at the state border. Okay, there you go. Another option. Chris, you might be able to slide down Bear Mountain and land on Mount Frizzle. And Roger says, thanks for all of the helpful information. No problem, Roger. Roger, good luck planning your hike. You guys, I really appreciate you joining me on this Saturday morning. No notice whatsoever, but some of you showed up, and we've had a good time talking about Connecticut. Go over and watch some of those YouTubers that we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. All the checklist, all the information for this episode can be found in the description on YouTube. It can also be found in the description or the show notes wherever you are listening to the audio version of the show. And Chris and Cody says, I'll leave it with this, you guys. Chris says he might need a pocket hang glider to go down Bear Mountain, and he's got everybody laughing in the chat. All right, you guys, once again, episode number 157. That is a wrap on Connecticut. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be safe out there, as always, and happy section hiking.